My name is Eugene Capon, also known as Capon Design. That's what I go by on the interwebs. I've had this weird little cutout career over the past decade or so. I was doing VFX work for different movies and stuff as an intern, and a buddy of mine wrote a movie called Justin Never Reloads. And he hit me up and he went, "Hey, can you do some VFX for my film?" And I said, "Sure." And they were so impressed they invited me to come out to try to be in the film. And I got a role as Warehouse Thug number 2. And because I was there on a variety of different aspects, they invited me to sit on the panel and talk about what we had made, what the process was like of this train wreck of a movie that we made. And I was like, this is the greatest feeling in the world. How do I keep this going? And so the answer for me was YouTube, and that was in 2008. A friend of mine had married a very famous YouTuber named It's Judy Time. And I was like, "Hey, how do you do this YouTube thing? This is amazing." And he told me the ins and outs. And a couple years later, I decided to go back to college to get a bachelor's degree in YouTube studies. Yes, I know whenever I say that, there's always somebody who goes, "Oh my God, is that a real thing?" Yes, it is. I went to Evergreen State College. They have a build your own curriculum program. That's what I chose. While I was doing YouTube full-time for a YouTube consulting company as an art director, somebody showed me VR. And it was a very, very early prototype of this Iron Giant experience that he was working on. I was outside, it was raining, I was wearing this headset, I took it off, I was just covered in sweat. I was like, "Oh, this is the future. Everything is going to change from here." So I saved up for my job for 3 months to pursue VR full time. And that was in 2015. I haven't looked back. It's been one of the greatest decisions I've ever made in my life. You want to answer that? Okay. So in 2016, this group reached out and they're like, "Hey, we're Seattle Fashion Week. We want to bring VR to our show. We don't know how to do that." And I went, "When is it?" They said 30 days. And I said, "I can probably cobble something out together in 30 days. I created this film called Journey VR. And I took it there. And somebody at SIT, or the Seattle International Film Festival, saw it at that event. And they were like, "Hey, you should submit it." I submitted it. It got selected. It became part of their category as far as things seen at SIF. And then Steam reached out. And they were like, "Hey, we really like your film Journey. Can we put it onto Steam?" And then it ended up being the #1 360 video for like a month when it went up. And that was really cool. And so from there, I was trying to figure out how can I get involved in VR in any way I can. And because I've been working with YouTubers at a YouTube consulting company, I had one of those verified Twitter accounts. And so when I started following people, they noticed. And I just happened to follow this guy who was hired at Allspace. And he went, "Hey, we would love to have you come in for a meeting." And this got me really thinking about what is a digital influencer? How do influencers and XR become a thing? And because XR was still so new, it really hadn't had a foundation. And so when I think of digital influencers, I think back to my high school days and early college, and I think of these 3 bands. Gorillaz came out in 1998. Death Clock from the Adult Swim show Metalocalypse came out in 2007, and Hatsune Miku came out in 2007 as well. If nobody knows who the last one is, she's a Japanese idol who is completely digital. Like, when they have concerts, they have a hologram of her dancing on stage, and people pay ridiculous amounts of money to go see her. So, going back to Allspace, they went, "Hey, we're getting ready to put together 16 big shows." And some of those shows were Reggie Watts, Justin Roiland, who created Rick and Morty. There was a channel called Josh, which was Sarah Silverman, Michael Cera, Tim and Eric. And then they were like, we have an extra slot. Do you want to do a show? And I went, okay. So me and my buddy Topher, this guy by the way, I went, hey man, I know you had been a radio DJ, you have a great personality. Let's start a talk show in VR as one of these starting 16 shows. And that's when AltSpace went under. They sent us an email and they went, hey, we need you to let your guest for the day to not come on. And I went, okay, one of two things is happening. We're either getting canceled or they're going under. And the next day, they sent us an email, AltSpace had gone under. We ended up with this show that we had put so much time in, effort, and since it was experimental content, nobody was getting paid for it. That's when High Fidelity reached out and was like, hey, we love your show. And to us that was like, oh, you couldn't afford anybody else. We would love to purchase a season like a TV show. And we're like, what?
Wow.
Nobody does that. Nobody buys VR shows like a TV show. So you can see the internal dialogue of the exact moment it happened. And when we say we are the first in VR talk show to ever be ordered by a network, we are not the first in VR talk show. There was Gunther's Universe in 2014, which is just a guy in his RV. We're doing stuff on VR chats. In 2016, a week before we started on AltSpace, the first episode of The Foo Show came out, and that was in 2016. He went to Kickstarter and got funded. And then in 2017, after we did our first season on AltSpace, we sold the show to High Fidelity. And when that came about, I essentially had 60 days to reproduce our entire show. Because AltSpace was plug and play, High Fidelity is really, you gotta make everything yourself. So I opened up a copy of Cinema 4D and I got to modeling. One of the great things about High Fidelity is you can basically build anything and bring it in. And I was like, I want to do this cyberpunk hangout area. We have this great stage that was a prefab for them that we just kind of tore apart and repurposed for our show. We did a lot of different things, and we flew down to Los Angeles and got what's called a DO scan, which is a volumetric capture of our bodies that were turned into 3D avatars. So we had these like 3D models that looked very much like us. And anytime we had a guest come in, it was basically me using Adobe Fuse to quickly like get everything in place to get a character that kind of looked like them. And I gotta tell you, we learned a lot. What did we learn? It is good to have a bouncer/sniper when you do a live show, because people will try to rush your stage. And so we had employees of High Fidelity sit at the back room, and as soon as somebody tried to get onto the stage, there was a little bit of a delay so they could snipe them and boot them out of the chat. When we were on stage, not everybody could hear us the first episode, so we quickly learned we had to have God voice on the stage, and everybody else that was in the crowd have spatial. That way everybody could hear us from the stage, but we couldn't necessarily hear them from the crowd. That way our guests wouldn't get choked up and go, oh, what did you say? Because that happened a lot. Have a good producer. When they asked me, how much do you think you can make your show for? I threw out a number, and they went, good, sold. And I went, damn, should I ask for more? And I quickly learned that we should have asked for more. Whatever you think as far as time, add 2 weeks to it. If you think you can do it in 1 week, ask for 3 weeks. Doing a show so fast turnaround when it is just you and another guy kind of doing backup, that is not enough to produce a full show. And so there were some overnights, there was a lot of just staying up over the weekend and trying prepping things for our show. Make sure your guests update their PC 48 hours before the show. We had a very big influencer that was coming onto our show, and she didn't show up. And I'm like, okay, we're 15 minutes from the show. She's missed her check-in. I call her up, and she goes, I just restarted my computer for the show. Windows is updating, and it has 2 hours left. And there's no way I can make your show. And that happened several times throughout the season. So we made a point to try to get everybody to update 48 hours before. Not everybody did it. So I guess there needs to be a little bit more hand-holding. The day before, anytime we do a show, Topher and I would basically do a run through. We would do a rehearsal, make sure that we had all of our questions. We would make sure that we had any of our bits or games or anything like that prepped for the show. Because it's in VR, not everybody is going to be able to know about it right away. So you need to run campaigns, especially now, because not everybody's tucked in, not everybody's going to be on the same social media channels that you're running. And when you do an announcement only in VR, only the people in VR are going to get a hold of it. And when you want to try and bring people into something they've never been before, you do need to entice them. One of the big things that happened to us, we were going to a very large conference. And we had a contract that they were going to cover our internet and a bunch of other things. And I get a call the day before the event. And we're getting ready to jump on a plane to LA. And they go, hey, we want to check to see how much internet you need to run your show. And we told them 40 megabytes up, 40 megabytes down. And they went, awesome, good to know. And they called back a few minutes later and go, hey, we need a check from you. And we went, what are you talking about? We said, yeah, you paid X amount to them, but it's going to cost another $50,000. And we were like, what? Luckily, Intel was nice enough to let us use the booth that they already had put a bunch of money into for an hour, and basically saved our episode as we were like kind of this like big deal at the conference. So be ready for the unexpected. Everything will be okay if you just put your nose to the grindstone and try to figure it out. As we look at different social media networks that are currently moving towards the XR world, you do have to kind of look at these. Oh, two of them are misaligned. That's fun. I'm basically looking at these 5. I'm looking at TikTok, I'm looking at Instagram, I'm looking at YouTube, I'm looking at Snapchat, and I'm looking at Facebook. And these 5 platforms have incredibly accumulated numbers as far as their users. And not all of them are ready for VR, and that's okay. TikTok and Instagram, they have AR filters. YouTube is everything at this point. They're currently working on their AR tools. Right now they have a beauty cam filter that they're just kind of testing right now. Snapchat is just killing it as far as their AR content. They have basically a studio that you can download and you can make your own content through. And then Facebook is just through and through killing it. They have 2.3 billion users, and they have their own VR platform, Facebook Spaces. And one of the big problems with people using what's available and then trying to pass it off as XR is this thing called dimensionality reduced content. So you'll have YouTubers who will be inside of VR, they'll be making videos with, say, like Beat Saber or Sprint Vector, and then they'll be like, check out my VR content. Well, it's not VR anymore. It was VR when you were in there, but what you're presenting to people is a 2D video. And so what we need to do right now is we need to get people on the train of producing content specifically inside of virtual reality. And that basically brings us to our next generation of influencers and what they're coming to. when I take a look at this next generation of XR influencers and XR creators, I'm basically breaking it down into these 4 categories: the designer, the developer, the filmmaker, and the casual. And each one serves its purpose. The casual is somebody who is just using what's readily available to them. It's somebody who is making content with that AR filter and then using that as a tool to interact with others. The designer is somebody who's more art heavy. It's somebody who can do 3D modeling, who can build levels. It's somebody who can do animation and rigging and wants to bring a great visual presence to whatever they are creating. The filmmaker, the filmmaker is somebody who's all about 360 video. It is somebody who wants to be the next J.D. Abrams, the next Casey Neistat. I'm looking forward to the day that there is a 360 filmmaker who becomes the next Casey Neistat, because it will happen. I see some solidarity over there. And then lastly, the developer. It is the person who can create their own content from the ground up. It is that kid in their mom's basement who could create the next High Fidelity or Allspace and basically bring their entire platform to the world. The creative workflow as far as these creators is very simple. You basically have your influencer type. For this, let's say they're a designer, and the genre that they specifically want to make content about is music. So maybe they get into Cinema 4D or Maya or whatever your 360 or your 3D modeling tool is. You start bringing those into High Fidelity or Allspace or SansArt, and you put together a rock show. And then you invite all your friends into VR, and then you perform your content for them in real time to them. Or you go as far as capture that content, capture that movement, play it later, just like a video would be on YouTube, and then just keep running shows and instances of that same performance. And that's really pushing ourselves to get to the metaverse. And there's a couple of different things that we need to do to kind of get there. One, it's saturation of the market. We're looking at about a 2025 hit point as far as that saturation happening. We need a quality network and a cost-effective hardware. I definitely feel like we are on the right track to getting there. I was really impressed with Google's Stadia. And the reason for that is all of their processing is behind the scenes. That means you can play the most crazy, graphic-intensive game on your smartphone. And when we remove that barrier of having to buy really expensive PCs to run these experiences, it basically opens it up. If we have a fast enough connection to the point where they're not getting that delay and they're getting sick, that's when the magic is really going to happen. The third thing on my list is cross-platform self-identity. It is when you have your avatar of whoever you feel like you are. If you're a giant 6-foot-tall wolf, awesome. If you have a 3D model that looks just like you and that's who you want to be as far as seen to other people, that's awesome. But when you can take that model and basically be that character or be yourself in any game, that's really what's going to lead us to our connected world. That is not just being limited to a single game or a single experience, just jumping back and forth, being yourself. And anyway, that is as much time as I could fit in 15 to 20 minutes. I would love to continue this conversation with anybody who wants to have it after this. You can follow me on all the stuff, and I do some like 360 videos